Hello. Oh, that's awesome. All right, I'd like to begin with the land acknowledgements. We acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, which include the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. The local bands consist of the Chippewa Tri-Council, who are made up of Beausoleil First Nation, Georgina Island First Nation, and Rama First Nation. We will also like to acknowledge the Wendat Nation Huron, who occupied these lands prior to the middle of the 17th century. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Welcome everyone to an inspiring evening of performance on the breast drum, combined with a selection of stories from the women of the Breast Drum Project. As part of Threadlines, a major exhibition by Marlene Hilton Moore, the international touring musician and record producer Ray Dillard will create a unique sound performance. Ray will interpret their women's stories through his sustained knowledge of them in combination with a vast percussive skills to reveal the power of the breast drum. Marlene Hilton Moore will give a brief introduction and illuminate her collaboration with Ray. There will be a Q&A following the performance afterwards. Welcome, and I'm so excited for today. Ray was saying that the last time that this has happened is almost 23 years ago in the Laking Gallery, and I've heard so much about this, and I'm so excited that you're all can be here to be part of this very special event, and we're very excited. So I'll hand it over to Marlene, and she will do some further introductions.
Thank you. Welcome and thank you for coming. I have to say, Ray and I are insanely excited to have a performance of Breast Drum again, because it has been that length of time. We did take the exhibition places in Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and we so had that great excitement. We showed it, but I did the performance actually at the very first one we launched at the Gardner Museum in Toronto, so we're happy with our history. But I thought I would give you a bit of history of the Breast Drum Project itself and how it came to be. And a lot of you may know, some of you may not, about 1993, I made a giant sculpture of a breast. It was a single breast, it was 9 feet high. It was installed on the grounds of the MacLaren Art Centre, and for some reason, it caused a sensation. And I was a little surprised, but I went on and on for a year, and people came from all over, and the newspapers and radio talk shows, and all they did was talk about the breast, the large one, but they also personally told me so many stories. Men and women. I'd be in the grocery store. I'd be very wealthy, you know, I'd be somewhere, and somebody would tell me this very personal, small story about a member of the family, a woman in the family, mother, sister, daughter, wife. And so I thought, wow, I really would love to collect stories of my own. These stories are already so interesting. What would happen if I collected my own stories? So that percolated in my mind, and I thought, well, I need another sculpture that's breast. I need a breast drum to go with these stories. So I made this sculpture, and it is a spun hemisphere, spun from steel, and made of moose hide. This is not the original moose hide. The original moose hide was, the original drum head was a moose hide, and I stretched that myself and couldn't avoid all the bullet holes because the diameter needed to be so large. So I patched them up, and we recorded the entire work on that original moose hide. Eventually it gave out, and today we have this beautiful hide that you can ask Ray about after, because he organized and designed it and that I made. So what I did ultimately was I decided I might as well go across Canada and talk to women. Oh, I just stay in Barrie. Oh, it's pretty nice. So I went from Newfoundland to the Yukon, and I talked to women of all ages. And some of them I knew, and some of them I didn't know at all. I just went knocking on their doors. I did get chased by the RCMP in Newfoundland for knocking on women's doors, and who was I? But that worked out in the end okay. And the other thing that is important for me to note is that I did not want to talk to women about issues. Just wanted to talk to women about life. So what would you have to say if I sat at your kitchen table? It was always around the kitchen table talk about birth and life and death, essentially. We were women. That's what we talked about. And so I collected hours and hours of recording. And I was overwhelmed, I was daunted. I didn't know how to deal with all of this. And I actually had to email Ray today to say, how do we actually meet? Do you remember? Because I feel like I've known him my whole life. And I had a memory, and he finally emailed me back about 5 o'clock and said, yeah, this is what I think. I said, yes. So Roy Heckley, sitting just back there, is the one who introduced us. Roy had an exhibition of his work, and I went, he and Roy's friend. Roy went, Ray went to meet his brother-in-law, and so we were introduced. And then, it was a moment in my life, certainly. And we spent a year and a half working together because Roy has all this extra. Roy and Ray. Ray has all this expertise with audio engineering. He's a brilliant percussionist. He was everything that I needed all wrapped up in one. And so we worked together a year and a half, and edited these hours of recording down to a core, succinct, approximately 5-minute story from each of the women. The material I had to leave out was, it was so upsetting, but had to be done. So we have this core project. The work is called the Breast Drum Project. And it originally was an installation with audio and women's stories and the sculpture of the drum. And then for each exhibition, we arranged a performance. So tonight you're going to get a stripped down performance. That's one way of looking at it. That's only stripped down in time, definitely not stripped down in effect. So the drum, the drumming, plays to the women's stories. Ray knows these women's stories as intimately and as sensitively as I do. We are one in terms of this work, this performance aspect of the work, and the editing of that work into its final self. So I hope you enjoy it. I know you will. And we can begin.
This is the Atlantic Ocean, right?
Yeah.
So what would the temperature of the water be? Fucking cold.
Bears, just they're scared, you know, like little brown bear or black bear. I was walking down the trail, and it was early in the morning. I was coming back from Dawson City. It was about 6 in the morning, and I was walking down the trail like this, and this bear was coming here this way, turned into garbage bear, eh? This little dump there up by Steer Crossing. I had my camp up that way. He's walking this way, and I was walking this way, and I'm just enjoying the sun. Hear that bear. Me too, I went that way too.
I remember when I was growing up that to go to Harbor from here, you'd have to go in on a boat.
Yeah.
You would have to drive from here to Harbor. I think they used to charge something like $1.50 to go in on this boat. To go to Harbor because there was no roads. And I was about 12 years old, I'd say.
Yeah.
When I used to go down that boat.
So that'd be 1960.
Yeah.
There was no road even in 1960.
Because I remember I used to want to go to Harbor and I had, you know, no money. And you'd probably cry for 3 or 4 days to get some money to go to Harbor. So you wouldn't need very much when it's just fine as you got for this ride. So I was probably 2 or 3 days crying for money going on the boat. So finally I got it. I was so excited. I will never forget that. when I was in Corner.
So that would have been
First
the
time.
first
First
time.
time.
Yeah.
I finished school when I was 16. I was taking grade 9. I wouldn't go back. Didn't want to go back anymore. I wanted to go to work. So I went to work in Corner.
When you were 16.
Yeah. And $45 a month is what I got. But I was so excited when I get paid. And this was the year the Beatles was really big. And we all got our ear just like the Beatles. We had a big Beatles badge in. Oh my God. And we used to wear those go-go boots. Boots up past our ankle. Oh my God. My takes with it.
Yes, that's it. That's it. That's what you get in St. John. That's the one thing I miss here, is the sound of the water.
Yeah.
The Canada cases in front of Mom's. When the waves break, it has the salty shh, shh that salt water has. You don't get it in fresh. I've never lived far from the vision of water.
It's such a mess to go through a fire. You know, you lose half your hands. And, you know, so many body parts are gone. Ears go. And
What was the fire? Would you talk about the fire?
that was when I was putting gas in the car. And I went, and it blew back. It was before they had those rubber hoses on. Put the nozzle in my tank, but it was almost empty, and it all blew back. But it just sprayed me. So I went to the attendant. I said, "Look, I'm just covered with gas." He said, "Oh, it evaporates in just a few minutes." So I thought, "Oh well." So I got in the car, turned the key on, and it exploded. So I was trapped in there. The last thing I remember is I saw this fire and I left. I can remember going out look at my body from my right corner. As I saw the fire, I knew I was going to die. You couldn't flex or anything like that without dying. So I remember what John said. So I said, well, just get out of here.
And how do you know that that's the body part you left from here?
Well, I can remember it leaving.
Discovered that this old woman had a baby. They're so surprised. She's an old woman, but she had a baby. They didn't ask any questions, you know, it's none of their business. One day that old woman was down by the lake and her little boy was there. He was, you know, playing around on the beach there with sticks and things like that. Here this big jackfish grabbed him. That woman just freaked out. Her son. They say she chopped down all these little spruce trees and she limbed them and she started building rafts and she got all of this dry brush from the spruce trees. They call that old lady's hair. Then she got what they call fire rocks. She put all those rocks on those rafts and then she took her flint and she sparked the first raft. She pushed that raft out and then she took the torch and she lit those other rafts and she pushed them out onto the lake one by one. And as each raft burned up, those rocks were very hot. And as it disintegrated from its burning, the rocks fell into the lake. Pretty soon the whole lake was boiling. I mean, just boiling hot. And that fish surface. He was cooked to death. That woman was so powerful, they say she could just fly. She just flew over top of that water and she hooked that jack with a willow hook. She threw that big jack up on the shore and proceeded to cut its stomach open right away to get her boy. Too late. Just his skeleton was in there, just his bones. So they say that old lady, she had fresh moose skin, never been used for anything. She laid it down on the ground like that. And she took them precious little bones, little skull, little spine, she put it down there. She lined everything up just like, you know, the skeleton of a little boy. And she wrapped that nice skin. She wrapped it like that. She started to pray over it. She sing. that for 4 days and 4 nights. They say on the morning of the 5th morning, that little boy come out. Strong story, eh?
Through the first few days or months, weeks, months, by saying I won't make this worse. I would like to stop functioning. I would like to die after David was killed and after we got that news. And then I said, well, but I can't. I mean, I have other family. I have Ike, and he's probably going through the same thing, and we would hold each other, but not really talk. And so I just kept saying, well, I won't make this worse. And now that I look back on that, I think that was just a strategy for me. It didn't have so much to do with I won't make things worse than they are. It was the only way that I could exist, was to put one foot in front of the other and keep going.
You know, people worry, and I've always done it too, but it wasn't until that police car drove up the lane that that you need to worry. I think in a way you should let things go, you should enjoy the moment. And the police came to the door, and that news comes soon enough. You don't need that any sooner than it comes to you. And he said to me, is there anybody else at home with you? And I said, I'll call my son. I don't know where my husband is. My son lives on the neighboring farm. And, but I knew at that moment that it was one of my children that finally, sort of by elimination in that few seconds, I said, it's about my son who's driving across the country. And he said, yes. And I said, can we go to him? And he said, no. And I think in that moment, when you feel as if you can say goodbye, if they just know, oh, it's so hard to deal with that, knowing that and the policeman said, no, there's nothing you can do, and you can't, he's gone, he's died. I think that's when nature takes over. The shock is so thorough.
for lunch, and I said, we passed by a lady who had triplets in a carriage. And I said, see, I said, now, I said, if I was going to buy this from you, like I talk about when I have a baby, I said, I want to get my money's worth, and I want, I'm hoping for like 2 or 3. It'll be a little bit extra and get it all over and done with. But, and then some man oddly passed on the street and laughed and said that wasn't the fun way of doing it, and I don't even know who he was then.
You mean he overheard your
Yeah, I overheard my conversation with the guys from work. And he said, well, that's no fun. And the guys were howling.
Not all, that's only part of them. And Ray's sensitivity and his intuitive understanding of his work. So we are open for questions. I don't know what I might tell you, but Ray can certainly tell you a lot about the performance and the drumming, and you might want to ask how this drumhead came to be, because the other one is falling apart and hanging on my studio wall.
But beautiful.
Oh, beautiful, yeah. It was that moose hide. And, I had made the drum with the moose hide before I ever went across Canada. Oh, yeah, sorry. Before I ever went across Canada collecting the stories. And so the myth that Louise Profit told, she's a Denny woman from the Yukon, from Whitehorse, and she told that myth, and the core of that myth is wrapping the bones up in the moose hide. And then on the morning of the 5th day, that little boy come out. So, I mean, that was just such a serendipitous moment for me, because the drum was a moose hide for all of the recording. And it finally just gave up. Well, Ray's not easy on a drum. So, welcome any questions you might have. We'd love to hear questions.
Yes, in the back.
Yeah, so kind of a two-part question about interviewing. How did you go about asking for the interview? And then did you feel like there was I feel like there's a skill involved with interviewing well, and how did you feel about how it, I don't know, like how it progressed as you got into doing it?
That's such an interesting question, because in actual fact, it always went well, other than that RCM, the woman calling the RCMP on me.
Other than being arrested.
Oh, well, no, it was a lucky moment. It's just a little tiny aside, but I have to say, because my friend and I decided we would go out and look for the whales. And we went all around the edge of the cliff, way out in the ocean. And the policeman found us up there. And he says, I'd like to see your ID, please. And I had left mine in the trunk of the rental car. So I had to go back and get mine. He said, well, you have to go get it. I said, oh, okay. So I went back, and luckily I was born in the East Coast with tides. And as I was walking back out with my ID, I saw that the tide was coming in, not going out, which the waitress at the restaurant had told us. But we would have been, I don't know, we probably drowned, I have no idea, but I knew the tide was coming in. And when I got back there, I said to John, we got to get out of here right now, we got to go back to shore. So anyway, the interviewing the women, I think it's like women, you just talk to each other, you trust each other, and you have to listen. Like, I really love to listen. And so by listening, you hear what they're saying, and then that allows you to ask, say, another thing, see where the conversation is threading itself. So I found it worked beautifully. And you have to accept all the weird sounds. Like the woman who was speaking Inuktitut, I don't know if you heard the child in the background, Solène Fafard, and she was speaking French, of course, it was her only language. And so I love that the child is yapping away in the background of Nancy's Inuktitut, and it's all this crazy sound that's building together. Yeah. So, kind of my answer, I gotta.
Yeah, it's a beautiful theatrical impact, combination of things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just curious. It was fantastic. I was just curious, Ray. Do you listen to the tapes? Like, what's your preliminary kind of process? Do you
I memorize everything they say. Literally, I memorize every single word that they said, and the timing of it, and the rhythm in which they were saying the words. And I have a cheat sheet of timings you can come look at the end. So I know precisely in the timeline where each part starts. And then I follow them because I know exactly what they're saying. And then the fills between are meant to transition, because these stories, because it's a dissection, are not necessarily one leads to the other. So I'm trying to build the transition points with the drum when there's no words. So that's the main way that I do this. I memorize what the women say. I could speak with them pretty much. In 5 different instances, you may have caught none of them, that's okay. I rhythmically played the first sentence you were going to hear from the person coming in 1 second before it happened. And then I would keep playing it with them for a second or two after. And that was how I was tying to the spoken parts. It didn't hurt that I got to create my own performance edit of this, so I put the stories together in the order that I wanted, and Marlene approved them except for flipping one, I think, or changing one aspect of one. So that's how I do it. It's not composed, so to say, but it's very close to. Because my timeline is literal. I've got a timer running on my phone that I time to the very first sound of which is the wave, the first wave you heard from the shores of Newfoundland, I guess.
Newfoundland.
Yeah. So that's how I can answer that.
How do you deal, or do you deal with moments of spontaneity? Like, is it something
Mine
that
or
you
theirs?
allow? You heard it?
My moments of spontaneity,
Yeah,
I count
within
on them.
this.
I'm begging for them.
Right, like within this.
Yeah, yeah.
You allow, you're
Absolutely,
open for
yeah.
it.
I know how I want to get out of each story and how I want to get into the next story. The thing in the middle I allow for myself to have some fun with. And create an energy flow. I mean, I'm interested in the arc of the whole piece. So for me, because I know exactly how long it is and who does what when, I am in control of that arc, even more than the women to some extent.
Right.
So as a composer of regular music,
Right.
I understand how form works. So this is a form, all right, but it's more of an energy form.
Right.
Because I know there are places that, even if you've never heard the stories but once, when the words, you know, the policeman at the door comes, the words from the policeman come fast enough. If you hear that once, I just right now physically felt that in my own body. I know what that means. And, you know, and the cry of the baby, I know exactly how that feels for me, and the snap of the jackfish, and all of those energy points in the speaking are what drive me musically.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Sure. Yes?
Colleen, I'm curious about the stories that you flipped and why. What was it about the flow that wasn't right and what?
Oh, I can answer that. There was one that we had a secondary voice in that I happen to love. And Marlene nixed it. She said, we don't need the secondary voice. It was in a language I didn't understand, and I just was having so much fun performing with it. I thought, oh, I'm going to have fun with that. But she said, no, that takes away from the linearity of the women's stories. And she was absolutely right. Frustratingly, but so that's the only edit she made. And I don't think you changed any orders.
No.
No. And I told her, I said, I want to try to accomplish in 24 minutes what we were doing in 55 minutes before. I want the same kind of feel in my own bones of the arc, of the energy arc, and the musical arc, and the intensity arc, and all of that. I want to try to achieve that in 24 minutes. So I need to kind of work on the order from my perspective. So that's how that was decided to do.
Was the breast part and the drumhead design together at the same time?
So this, Marlene's original piece, is there a photo of it here anywhere?
Of the
It's in
large,
the book, of the original.
the original breast.
Are you comparing this to the original first breast?
Was this the drumhead? Was it?
No, this drumhead was built after we finished recording the piece, to be honest.
The original drumhead was built together with the breast?
Yes, I had nothing to do with that. She built the whole original drumhead part.
I did that.
So you.
It was beautiful.
It's your fault.
I mean, it was my fault, yes.
She shot the thing 3 times. I
I did not shoot
didn't.
that.
I'm just kidding.
You tuned it as an instrument as well?
No, I just made it.
Okay.
I had no idea what I was doing. I'm a sculptor. I thought, I'm going to make a sculpture that's a drum, that's a breast.
So it became a piece of art that
It was
developed into an
originally
instrument.
meant to be a piece of art. That's where I started. And I had an idea of how I could create the look of a breast, and I had been investigating spinning metal, so I knew I could spin a hemisphere, and that was the beginning. And then I cast a bronze nipple and welded it onto the front. Well, I don't weld, but the welder welded. And then I thought, well, I need a drum head. So I worked with Paul Schilling from Rammer Reserve, and he took me to the hide depot in Peterborough, where all the hunters have to take their hides. And they had a forklift, and they pulled out a skid of moose hide. We needed moose to get the diameter. And so Paul and I started pulling the skins off this one skid, and with our measuring tape tried to find the biggest one we could with the fewest bullet holes. We couldn't avoid them all. And so then I just patched. But first I had to do that yucky job of soaking the hide in a barrel of water for weeks, and then getting an oolic and scraping the fat off, and I mean, you can learn anything if you want it badly enough. Do anything. So that's how I made it.
So then when we finished the recording, which we barely finished before the hide literally gave way, and we had sort of dreamed about the idea of maybe touring this piece, but we hadn't completely said we're going to do it. But then once the decision was made we were going to tour the piece, I said, okay, I have a friend in Toronto, and he and I will figure out a way to make... This is actually tunable, believe it or not. You can't see that from where you're sitting, but I can show you...
It's right there.
Where?
You're right?
Yeah. Oh, I saw it. It's right there. So, my friend Roy Hickling, back there, helped me build this highly technical tool that I can't believe they don't have at Canadian Tire. They should. But this tool allows me to go around behind here and tune any one of, every 3 inches, there's a tuning lug back there. There's 2 hoops. The head is permanently mounted to the back hoop, and the bolt pushes the front hoop forward to increase tension. And then the whole thing can be taken out and serviced, or whatever you need to do to it. So that was built by a friend of mine and I in Toronto. And the tool was built by Roy, because after it was all said and done, I went, oh yeah, that's great. Do I take the head off every time I want to tune it? That's not going to be any fun. So we devised this tool. Lori.
Yeah, so the original sculpture was a natural-looking woman's breast, and that's the one you became famous and infamous for, and everybody started telling their stories. So what was the transition between that and then creating this? What was the spark to create it from?
It was the stories. It was, I mean, it was crazy. This elderly couple drove up from Guelph, Ontario to the old MacLaren and tottered out of their car, and I guess William Moore was the director, whoever was at the gallery. I was already there in the yard, but they said, oh, have you come to the gallery? He said, we've come to see the breast. They had driven all the way from Guelph to see the breast. So, but I mean, that was an incident, but it was the stories. I thought there's something happening here. You know, the news media was calling it, you know, salacious, you know, they have the words. They just missed the point. But all the people who talked to me got the point. This is a breast, you know, it's about nurture and motherhood and women, and so that was the real story, and I thought, well, I really need to amp up this real story. And I'm surprised I thought about going across Canada. I did get a Canada Council grant to do that, because that was daunting. And I sometimes wanted to know the women I talked to, and sometimes I didn't. The only issue really, the story that drew from an issue was the biological clock, the ticking biological clock, because that's such a story for women. And it happened to be my daughter, you know, who was just at that point in her life, and she had that conversation, that story to tell. And so I wanted a French-Canadian woman. I went to Quebec to find a French-Canadian woman, but I found an English woman instead. And then I found the young woman who was from Haiti, and you heard her speaking Haitian Creole. And so that was that language. And then I went out west to gather another story, and I found my French-Canadian woman out in Saskatchewan, because she's French-Canadian and adamant about it. And then Nancy Duby was there visiting to translate for her dad, who was working with Joe Farfard. So I happened to collect that story. So you know, when I visited a high school friend in the Yukon who I hadn't seen in, I don't know, 25 years, and he introduced me to the Dene woman. So I mean, it was luck.
No such thing as luck. It was being aware and paying attention.
Yes.
But
I don't believe in luck.
To create the drum to speak about the beating the breast, or why did you transition from that sculpture to the drum?
Well, I just had the feeling that, you know, you beat your breast in pain and sorrow, and you beat your breast in joy. And interestingly, about 10 years later, during the Iraqi war, there was a newspaper photograph. I have to put this down, because I have to demo. There were 5 women in an ark. They were Iraqi women, and it was the war. And they were beating their breast like this, all 5 of them, and you could see you could feel the motion, the rhythm, and the pain. These Iraqi women. And I thought, oh my gosh, I was absolutely right. It was so many years later, but.
And often that's a gesture people do, is just to put their hand here when you're speaking of something that's very meaningful.
Yeah.
This is the original skin. You'll see the beautiful patches that survived for a while, but not for a long while. But that's the original moose head. Yes?
So when you're doing the performance, is it an emotional journey for you?
I don't even want to try to describe. Yeah, there's a reason you can't see my face. And you could, and that's not fair. It's extremely emotional. And I sometimes because I know what's about to happen, sometimes I know what did happen, and sometimes I'm already connecting to 2 stories later. And yeah, it's a very emotional thing. And it's also, that's the reason I feel I can control the emotional arc a little bit, is I'm trying to keep myself in check also.
We feel it too.
There have been times when at the end of the performance, I just have to leave the room immediately. I can't see anyone for a minute or 2 and try to get my composure. Even last night, when we were doing a sound check, I got right up to the story that starts with the knocking at the door and David's dead. And I stopped the recorder and I said, I can't go on. This is part of the performance that I can't test. And it's too emotional, it's too involved. And I have intent. I tried to play with intention. If I play with intention, I feel like there's a chance that you might understand some of what I'm trying to do. If I don't play with intention, it's just somebody hitting a piece of hide. You know, but I believe that about all kinds of music and all kinds of music making. If you don't play with intention, you don't expect your audience to get much, okay? If you play with intention, they're going to get it. They may not get exactly what you mean, but they're going to get something critically important to them. 2 things on a personal note, if you don't mind, and I'll do them in no order of importance, but Roy and Sue, I can't thank you enough for introducing me to Marlene, because this was, remains, and will always be one of the most important musical and inspiring artistic times of my entire life. So I thank them. I wasn't even living here when we did this in this book. And the second thing is, I traveled to Japan a fair bit, and Japan has an interesting term for people of high esteem, and I'm not talking about the Musk-like figures, I'm talking about people of clear cultural significance to the country. They call them national treasures, and it's not a joke. It's an honor bestowed upon people in the highest of reverence. And I want to say that if we had such a thing in Canada, you're standing looking at one of our incredible national treasures at Marlene. That lightly, because I think that life is too short to not be really, really, really clear about important things that are right in front of you. Be really clear about them. So I thank the gallery for helping us put this on. I thank Marlene for helping with her part. If Tim Bilkin was here, I'd thank him because it's the most comfortable seat in the world. Tim Bilkin built that. It's a deer skin over hand-hewn boards. It's quite beautiful. And I think we'll take one more question if there is one, and then I'm just going to leave this on the stool. And you're welcome to take a full 360, because if you haven't seen the other side of the breast drum, you should. David.
Girl,
Marlene, it's okay.
Marlene, back to intention. So when you you started this journey and you started a series of interviews with women across the country, one of the things about interviewers, they start out with an initial set of questions in their head that's going to get them roughly where they want to go. From the point when you started to the point when you hit what we call in the interviewing business saturation, where you've had enough, or you've had enough, or you've got enough, how did the questions change, or what you focused on change in the course?
Actually, nothing changed. That's such an interesting question to me, because actually nothing changed, because it's always the same thing. I don't know, women have a womenhood or something. It always starts with, would you like a cup of tea? Honest to goodness. And you know, that breaks the ice, and then you just start somewhere with the question. I grew up in the East Coast, you know, you are always sitting around the kitchen table, and all you do is talk. That's what people do, men and women. Men sit around the country store, and women sit around the kitchen table. And so it's a bit inherent to me, but I think I always wanted to know what that particular woman had to say. And there was an old woman in Newfoundland, somebody directed me towards her. And it was it took how many readings, listenings of that tape to even understand her, because she had the most thick Newfoundland accent, and she had no teeth in it. She was 93. She never teeth in it. So
but she had a lot to say.
She had a lot to say. I mean, you had to listen and listen, but I mean, what she said was really important. And she ended the whole thing by saying, "Don't nobody come to your house no more. I think the world is gone." And I mean, that was, yeah, I was done. I mean, I knew then that I had the thing that I need, all the little bits before about the moose and the birds and the food and socialization. But when she said that, I knew that I didn't need to stay and, you know, take her time anymore. And it wasn't always that crystal clear, but you know when your time's up, you know when, you know, you should be leaving, time to go say goodbye. We all know that.
Yeah.
So it's just me too.
I think it also appropriate to thank the gallery and all the staff of the gallery that helped us throughout the last 2 days, and even before. I started tuning on the drum about a week after it got installed. It got installed with a lot of assistance too. It'll be back in the gallery room probably tonight. And I'd just like to ask you to give a hand to all of the staff. Show yourself. These kind of things, these don't happen without a lot of support and help. And it's been a real privilege to bring this piece back to life in this new form.
Well, thank you. I have to thank Ray. I mean, I honestly think we ought to put our heads together and take it elsewhere. Take it on the road. And take it on.
We actually have a trunk built for this.
Oh, yeah.
A shipping trunk like a rock band would have. Clydesdale cases made us 2 cases that hold the whole system.
No, 4.
4 cases because of the sound system too.
Yeah, we have a sound system, yeah.
So yeah, this is a roadworthy piece. So anybody knows any places you'd like us to come to your neighborhood and do this piece, we'd be happy to. And any last question? Last opportunity. Okay, wait, we got one.
I only have one sort of question with a comment, and I really appreciate and love the integration of the conversations with the beating of the drum, because conversations, the way I see them, are very much like an instrument where there's times to pause and listen and times to interject and reinforce to get to those really meaningful points where those conversations appear. They come out and it's beautiful how you've illustrated that.
Thank you, JC. Yeah, that's, the voice is an instrument now.
In my mind, it's kind of a radio play. What I just did is kind of a radio play because there's no imagery for you to look at. So it's like a really well done radio play. And I had the privilege a few years ago of conducting a very famous radio play that went dormant for 40 years that John Cage wrote for percussion and narration. And it really gave me a new mindset about how radio plays worked. And in my mind, this is kind of what I think of this as a radio play. In the original performances, we often had video that would play. Still images, no movies, but still images slowly dissolving and moving around on the screen, and it's really beautifully done. But the imagination is much clearer if you don't have anything to look at.
Yes.
You get to make your own pictures. And I hope you found something interesting to listen to, and I hope you made some really beautiful pictures, because I sure had fun playing for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you so much, Marlene. What a privilege to be here, all of us, to witness this amazing, unforgettable event. And we're so happy that you could do this today, and to repeat it again after so many years in such a magical way is amazing. Thank you. So I do want to say before we go, there are 2 other opportunities if you're interested to kind of experience Marlene's exhibition. We have an amazing workshop that Marlene will lead at the end of this month on a Saturday, May 30th. There's still some spots available if you want to join. And then newly added, we have the Wednesday Poets, which are a group of 4 women who were very inspired by our exhibition, who are creating original poetry to go with your show, and we'll be doing that in your space. So I wanted to tell you in person today. June 11th. June 11th, like a poetry reading of 4 women. So please do come to that. That's free as well in the evening. So everything's on our website. You can click on Marlene's exhibition and look at the related programming and join us then. So thank you so much. We're glad you're here today.